Hi, I'm Duncan and I'd like to welcome you to my latest video blog. Today I'll be talking about the work of Gerry and Sylvia Anderson as seen through the eyes of a fan, which is myself. Their story has been told many times, and I'm sure it'll be told many times in the future. But I wanted to do it through my experience as a fan. So I hope you'll enjoy what I've got to say. I first watched Gerry and Sylvia's shows when I was about three. I think it would have been, I was born in July 1963, and I think I was watching this with my mother, the second run of Thunderbirds, which was from, I think, from October 1966 to April 1967. I don't think I remember it the first time round. I remember being very frightened of Thunderbird 2's rocket motors when it blasted off from the ramp, and the engine smoke went into that little cavity at the back in the ground. It opened up. I was terrified of bangs as a child. I couldn't pull crackers. I had to open the cracker and take the banger out. And so being frightened of loud bangs was probably not a very good indication the chances of becoming a diehard Gerry Anderson fan. But I think I conquered my fears of bangs. I used to have a sort of nightmare about being on the runway when Thunderbird 2 was coming out of the silo, and have to run and hide somewhere behind one of the trees or something. But I do remember my mum pointing out the trees as they went back like that, and I do remember the episode Lord Parker's Holiday, which was first transmitted, I think, in the autumn of 1966. It was one of the new episodes, and I remember watching it with Lady Penelope going along in the Fab One along the water, and that was the first time it was broadcast. And I remember watching it. We had some friends around. I think it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was terribly worried that if she stopped the car, it would sink. I also the series, the second series of Thunderbirds had 20 repeats from the original series with it, and I remember Parker coming down in the with his umbrella. My mum thought that was hysterical, and I also remember. Lady Penelope getting in the. I think it must have been the imposters. I was getting very worried because she was caught in the brambles and she got her hair twisted, and then I remember I used to get very anxious when the characters were in trouble, and I because I have a sort of attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which we've only just discovered. And I would be very if there's a television program, I'd dive into it and really experience the characters. I hated interruptions of any kind, and I'm just trying to think. I had, of course, my first toy, Gerry Anderson toys. I remember, I think was a Thunderbird 2, probably plastic one, and a Thunderbird 3. Thunderbird 3 I lost on holiday in Jersey of 1967. That was devastated, but I've got two replacements now, and I've also had the Thunderbird, big plastic Thunderbird 2 with the mole in it, a very different mole to the one that Mike Trim designed, and there was Captain Scarlet, which I stumbled on in 1967. I didn't see the pilot. I think the first one I actually saw was the one set in space on a cold winter's night. And I remember meeting Father Christmas in Ely's leading up to Christmas 1967 with my gran. And he asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said Captain Scarlet, please. And that Christmas, I got Captain Scarlet. So that was lovely. And my younger brother Jimmy, he got for 1960s in April '68. He got the big J. Rosenwald not Thunderbird, Spectrum Pursuit vehicle. And I got for my birthday a little later in July. I got the Spectrum Patrol car, big plastic one, and I got a dinky a Spectrum Pursuit vehicle, which I didn't think perhaps was quite as fun as the big plastic one, but it was still very, very nice. And for Christmas, my brother got Christmas '68. My brother got a little figure of Joe 90. His glasses got broken very soon after he got out of the box, and Dad glued them back together again with Airfix glue. And my brother also got the Sugar Smacks one where you Max car, where you had sent off a postal order for 2 packet tops, and you got back a kit of a snap together kit of Joe 90's car, which was a very nice model. My brother got that. I don't know whether I'd done something naughty and wasn't allowed to have one or something, or whether the offer wasn't on for long enough for both of us to get a copy. But Captain Scarlet, well, I was terrified by the Mysterons, just like I was with Doctor Who and the Yeti. But turning the television off was never on the cards. And I loved the circles and of lights, and Captain Black, when he appears in the front credits, you get there to where you see his legs, his feet on the ground, and you think, I've got to get out before the camera comes up, jumps up to where his face is. But you never do. You just get transfixed there, and he just moves just ever so slightly in the picture that makes you realise that he is alive. And but I love Captain Scarlet. I even knew it was transmitted in black and white. I think you saw it in colour. Your brain, of course, the merchandise was all in colour, so I think your brain played a few tricks with you. And of course, the Joe 90. What I loved about Joe 90 was the music. All Barry Gray's music's lovely, but just love that end theme, the end version of the theme. It's with the lovely titles, again seen in black and white at the time. And the first time I experienced I had of Gerry Anderson in colour was my mum took myself and a few other children and their parents. We all went in a group to see Thunderbird 6, which was the second Thunderbirds movie. That was released in August 1968. I loved it. I felt so tiny. I was only 5, and I felt very tiny in the cinema as Thunderbird 2 blasts off from its ramp twice in the movie. I thought I was going to get blown into the Kiora cartons on the floor. The film's been criticised perhaps rather unkindly. You did feel it was a bit of a send in recent years. I felt it's a send-up of Thunderbirds. But there was I remember the scene where my friend Gillian said to her mum, Thunderbird 2's in that silo. And she said, oh, is it, dear? And the silo opens and out flies this, it comes out on I think it rolls out on its wheels, a Tiger Moth aircraft. And the audience, I remember, in the cinema collapsed laughing. I don't know that many people in the cinema. It was the afternoon performance, but people thought it was very funny. I remember them all on the wings of the craft. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen the film. I had no complaints at all about the movie. And sadly, it didn't do particularly well in the box office, but it was lovely to see Thunderbirds again because it had come off television where I was, and it hadn't been on for several months, maybe well over a year. So it's nice to see the show again. And then after Joe 90, the Secret Service, I don't think was shown in the UK. Sorry, it was shown in the UK in, I think, in 3 regions, but I don't think London Weekend bothered with it. But they were happy to have a rerun of Thunderbirds in 1969, whereby this time we could see it in colour. And I think the first episode they broadcast, London Weekend, in this new run was not the pilot for some strange reason. I think it was the Mighty Atom, the one about the little mouse, the little electronic mouse. So that was a bit of a strange one to start it off with. But of course, this was my first real time that my brother and I were able to watch Thunderbirds properly and really realise what was going on. And just before this new rerun of Thunderbirds, there was an advert that came out on television, and it really surprised me. It was a Thunderbirds advert for Zoom ice cream with Thunderbird 4 under the water and a ship on the surface that's trapped in ice and about to break up. And the captain sends a mayday, and Gordon in Thunderbird 4 receives the call and says, "Do you read me? I'm sending up 2 Zoom missiles." And he fires the missiles out of the front of Thunderbird 4, and they go up and go straight through the ice, freeing the ship and saving it. And it says, "Thanks to International Rescue and Lions Made Ice Cream." And that was just a few weeks before this new rerun of Thunderbirds. And I wonder whether it was the last thing that the puppeteers at Century 21 did before the puppet department was disbanded. Gerry started work on UFO. But nobody seems to remember the advert apart from me. Someone has even had the cheek to suggest that it was my imagination. Well, it wasn't. I do remember although we had a very generous, my brother and I, array of Anderson toys. I do remember my mum not refusing to buy us ice cream for Zoom or Fab with the cards in them, because they were something like about 5 pence or something, or 6 pence or something, which was pretty expensive. And I actually think my mum was quite correct. This, if you've got, I think I had my little sister was now around, and maybe some other children were with us, and I think when there were so many other nice ice creams that you could get for, say, 3 pence or something, they were very expensive. And of course, I think it was the royalties that were for ITV, and I think, dare I say it, for Gerry and Sylvia as well, because I think they had the merchandise rights. Anyhow, we did pretty well, my brother and I, when it came to, and of course, Mum and Dad were let it with they were quite strict in many ways, but they were understanding enough to let us watch TV in the morning, and that's when Gerry's shows were really being shown. Once they had their initial run, they have a great Saturday morning feel about them. But really, when they first shown, they should be shown at a peak viewing time, and Saturday morning perhaps as the repeat for the repeat runs. So in 1971, UFO started broadcasting in the London Weekend area, and I was watching it. I got very angry because I missed the first 3 episodes because of various things going on. So the first episode I saw was Survival, one where Paul Foster meets the alien on the surface of the moon, and they help each other to try and get back to the moon base. and it was a very moving episode. And I'll tell you something a little later when I spoke to Gito Santana, who played the alien. Well, it was basically at a convention. I'll tell you now because I'll forget otherwise. But I was praising his performance when he was writing his autograph for me, and somehow I think there was a language barrier or something. But I think he thought I was taking the mickey out of his performance, which I wasn't. I was praising it, but he looked very angry and said something back to me. I don't know. It wasn't very. I think he was defending himself because he felt I was having a go at him, and you got David Graham looking over from who's sitting next to him signing autographs. But I wasn't. I was praising his performance because I thought he was very, very good in that episode. He played other aliens in other episodes, but this was the best episode for him to shine as an actor, and he did. And of course, there was merchandise for UFO. My brother had a green Shadow Mobile, and I had a green UFO Interceptor. In fact, my brother also got an Interceptor as well. His had red skis on it, and mine had orange skis, and I've still got it after all these years. And they fired a missile. It was a lovely toy. It looked beautiful, and I don't think anybody minded the fact it was green when in the show it's white. That's because I understand there was a shortage of no, there was a Dinky Toy had a surplus of red paint that they didn't want to throw away, so they used it on the Interceptors. And I don't think I ever saw a white UFO Interceptor, at least not for a Dinky one. I think Bandai did a bigger plastic one. If you get your hands on that, that would go for a lot of money. And there was also Ed's car, a keyless clockwork motor car, but I didn't have that. And then, of course, there was Space 1999 came out, where you had a choice of either blue, green or white. I think the freighter was in white, and I think the Eagle transporter was either in blue or green. I got a green one for birthday 1975, and so Gerry and Sylvia Anderson merchandise had been a very big thing for Christmas from the early 60s right up into the mid 70s. And then, of course, what happened was that things came to a bit of a halt. Space 1999 went into a second series into the late 70s. But the puppet Super Marination material, obviously they'd come to the end of their runs by about 1975, 76, and there was no attempt to get to renegotiate for them to be carrying on being shown. So they didn't surface apart from Doppelganger, also known as Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, getting shown, and the Thunderbirds movies being shown every now and again. For the next 6 or 7 years, things were very, very quiet on the Gerry and Sylvia Anderson front. And very sadly, Gerry and Sylvia separated in 1975, eventually getting divorced in 1981. It was a terrible, terrible shame. Basically, would just say two things about this situation, because it is a very sad situation. I find it very sad that two people who played such a massive part in entertaining and making happy millions of fans all over the world couldn't be happy themselves. And also the fact that obviously the breakup was very, very horrible for both of them. And I just thank the Lord that both of them came through the other end. Sylvia would go on to write a novel called Love and Hisses, She would work in the entertainment industry, I think on a cable channel. She did a program, I think it was called a puppet show called The Animates in 1980, which had Peter Holmes, the property master, on a lot of Gerry's shows, involved with it as well. And I think I saw it on television in 1980. They gave it, it was on the children's lunchtime slot on ITV, and they gave it a good run, said all Sylvia Anderson, who was responsible for so many of those great shows. So I sat down thinking I wasn't going to get another Thunderbirds, but it was a charming little children's show. And very sadly, Sylvia died a few years ago, and tragically, in the last few months, Gerry and Sylvia's son, Gerry Jr., who I believe is also known as Andy, he's a doctor out in Tanzania. Was it Tanzania? I think it was Tanzania. And he out helping as a doctor in a developing country, and very sadly he died of a brain tumour. And of course Gerry and Sylvia's shows were about heroes. Well, Andy, you're a hero in real life, my friend. And Sylvia did come to a Fanderson convention where she kept everybody entertained, and we all gave it stood for her to go past us as she left. And I think a few people were hoping to get her autograph, but I think she was not in a position where she could have done autographs. But she certainly kept everybody spellbound. She worked very tirelessly for breast cancer care and Dr. Bernardo's. I know she loved children. And she wrote two very good books. In 1991, Yes, Milady, and in 2007, My Fab Years. And I went to see her in an arts centre. And in, I think it was 2009, I think, or 8, just after she'd had My Fab Years, and some of us had already got the book. She was selling it there. And what we did was... we got our books signed. We gave £5 of the proceeds for the sale of the book were going to charity. So we all embursed her with the £5 for her autograph, so the charity would not go forgotten, would not suffer. And she was very gracious. When I asked her a question, I got a bit muddled up because I felt very uncomfortable about the Gerry and Sylvia thing. And she was so sweet because she just looked at me like, don't worry, young man, just say the question. And I asked her who her favourite characters were. And she said Parker and Penelope, without a doubt. And I also have met Dee, her daughter, who's absolutely charming, lovely lady. Is very much involved in show business and is working on a series, I believe, called The Last Station. It's gone very quiet for a number of years, but I've still got my stickers very proudly on my wall. Hope very much it will get into production someday because it looks a really fabulous idea. If you want a script writer, I'm here. Going to basically back to Gerry, in 1981, well, Gerry and Sylvia's shows started to get shown again. And they were getting very, very successful. They were getting great ratings on a Saturday morning. And they were not getting promoted, really. They were just were putting them on word of mouth. ITV obviously thought word of mouth will do the trick. They didn't even have an interview with Gerry. TV Times, which I think was a bit, and Sylvia. They could have had separate ones. Gerry had just remarried to a lovely lady called Mary, and the first convention happened, a British convention at least, in 1981. I didn't go to that, but I went to one in 1982. just to recap, there was a lot of flack, a Mickey taking from people for anybody who liked watching Gerry Anderson shows. And sometimes it got really, really bitchy. I don't quite understand why, because you could see that there was a real art involved in that. And to my delight, I found there was a fan club called Fanderson that had just been set up. And I joined it thinking, if I am mad, well, there must be a load of other people mad as well. And they had a convention, the second British convention in 1982, which I went to. It was in London. And I met Gerry for the very first time, and several people who worked on his shows, including Shane Rimmer, and he's the voice of Scott, and Ed Bishop, who was the voice of Captain Blue in Captain Scarlet, and also Commander Straker in UFO. And I asked Gerry a question about with him on the microphone when he on the Saturday when he arrived and did a speech and a talk, and I asked him whether Thunderbirds would ever come back and be remade, and if so, would he like to be involved? And he said yes, he hoped it would get back on made one day. Excuse me. And he would like very much to be involved. He hoped they would, ITC Entertainment would ask him. And I was very nervous. But I did meet Gerry, speak to Gerry, that I got his autograph that afternoon, and then asked him for a photograph on the Sunday. I first asked Ed Bishop for a photograph, and I took the photograph, and it looked like the flash hadn't worked. And I said, was that okay? And he said, I didn't see a flash. So I took another photograph, and this time the flash worked. And I said to him, oh, I wonder what happened there. And then we're just about to walk off, and I thought, I haven't even said thank you for the photograph. So I went up to him, because there was nobody talking to him, and I said, I'm sorry, Ed, thank you very much for posing for the photograph, and I asked him what he was doing now, and he told me, I can't remember exactly. And then I took a photo. I asked Gerry for a similar thing. Could I have a photograph of him? About 50 minutes later, I took a photograph of him, and the flash didn't work. So apparently I took another photograph of him, and this time the flash worked, and Gerry went like that back with the flash with a real expression, and I thanked him. I also took a photograph of Barry Gray and a few other photographs of other fans. Gerry's speech on the day when he arrived was very moving. I remember a very nice member of the press stood back so that I could take a photograph, and Gerry said he thanked all the fans for standing by him and all the people who'd stood by him in the industry. And he said, life brings many acquaintances, but few friends. He said he felt he was very lucky because he had a lot of friends, meaning us. And that was a lovely convention. And coming back, I went back on the train with a fan, and we were talking, and she said, what do you do for a job? And I said, I work at Sainsbury's. And she said, oh, that seems like a really dead-end job. And I thought, well, thanks a lot. Come back to earth with a real bang. And Sainsbury's was pretty good. I had very happy days there. And I was telling them all day the next day about the convention. I think people were sick of it. And there'll be another convention in 2 years' time. By then, sadly, Barry Gray had died. Shane Rimmer was there, Ed was there again, Ed Bishop, and a few, and David Graham, I think, came for his first one, but he didn't do an autograph. Nicholas Parsons came. He's the voice of Tex Tucker, and flippin' heck, the voice of Zelda. Oh, I've forgotten her name, bless her. It'll come in a minute. She's a wonderful actress. They were husband and wife. Not now, they weren't, but they both did voices. Denise Breyer, that's it. They both worked on Four Further Falls together, and then Denise Bryer many years later was the voice of Zelda in Terrorhawks. And it was a very exciting time, 1982, because Terrorhawks had been given the green light. And Gerry had actually said, please don't ask me lots of questions about Terrorhawks, because there'll be press releases at the right time. So just ask me about my old stuff. And that surprised me, because I thought he wanted us to ask questions about his new work and not to be asked questions about the old stuff. I think I had my Beatles hat on at the time. To meet Gerry was like meeting Paul McCartney or George Harrison or Ringo Starr. A great 60s